Good morning. Today's Chumash is Parshas Noach, Shlishi. We're holding Perek Zayin, Pasuk Yud Zayin. Today we're going to learn that the rain, the Mabul lasted 40 days, after which the earth remained in water for around 5 months, until the water began to subside. And then it took almost 6 more months for the water to recede completely. And we're going to learn about this Parichlos. And let us begin. Pasuk Zion, the Pasuk says, Vayhi HaMabul 40 yom al ha'aretz. And the Mabul was 40 days on the earth. Vayirbu HaMayim, the water increased. Vayisu es HaTeva, and it lifted up the Teva. Atore me'al ha'aretz, and it was elevated above the earth. Rashi says, Vatore me'al ha'aretz, it was elevated above the earth. And before we get to Rashi, just want to explain something very interesting that, as the Mefarshim explained, this is from the Radak and others, that just from the actual rainwater, it was impossible for the Teva to float because it was very, very heavy. So Dafke, when it was Vayirbu Hamayim, which means the Ma'ayonis HaTahoim, as we learned yesterday, the springs were open, then Vayisu HaTeva, then the Teva was able to be lifted up. Now, Rashi says, what does it mean, Vatore me'al ha'aretz, that it was lifted from above the ground? So you could think that above the ground, is it above the ground? Is it above the highest water? So Rashi says that the Teva was lifted from me'al ha'aretz, but not me'al hamayim, as the Mefarshim explained. Why? Because Meshukas Hoyse B'mayim Achas Esrei Amo, the Teva was sunken into the ground 11 amas. Kisvina Tu'una HaMeshukas Miktsasa B'mayim. This is like, as we know, by a ship, that every ship is always partially sunk into the water. Rashi says, the psukim that we're going to learn now is going to prove to us that the Teva was actually submerged in the water 11 amas. Pasuk Yilches, Vayibru Hamayim, Vayirbu Moed al Ha'aretz. And the waters became very strong and increased greatly. Me'al kol ha'aretz, above the earth, over the earth. V'atelech ha'teva al pnei hamayim, and the teva floated over the surface of the water. Now Rashi says, what does it mean Vayibru Hamayim? What does it mean that when the waters became strong? So, and this is according to many ways of learning, this is Vayibru Hamayim refers to after the 40 days, then the waters became strong. Rashi says, Me alehem, nothing to do with, not from the rain, just on their own. And when the pasuk says, Vayirbu Moed, again, Vayibru Hamayim, the water became very, very strong. Vayirbu Moed al ha'aretz, it became with kamus, a lot on the ground. And then the water, the teva started to float on the water. Okay, Pasuk Chitas, the Pasuk says, V'hamayim gobru me'ed al ha'aretz, the water was very, very, very strong. Vayichusu kol ha'orim ha'gvoyim, and it covered all the high mountains, asher tachas kol hashamayim, which is beneath the entire heavens. The water covered even the highest mountain, which we're going to learn in a second. This is 15 amas taller than the tallest mountain. Pasuk Chav, the pasuk says, 15 amas above the Gobru Hamayim, above the Vayichusu Harim. So 15 amas above, the water became very strong and covered up the mountains. Now Rashi says, what does that mean? So Rashi says, not 15 amas from where the ground was. After the peak of the mountain, it went 15 amas taller. After the water made everything equal, then it went up 15 amas even taller. which was a lot of water. Okay, Pasuk Chaf. The Pasuk says, okay, we did this for Echos Amayim. Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Vayigva kol basar harimis ala aretz. All the flesh that was crawling on the ground, Vayigva, it died, and the difference between Vayigva and Vayamus, Vayigva means it died very quickly, like a person who drowns, le'aleno. So Vayigva kol basar harimis al haaretz ba'oif u'ba'behema b'chaya. This was the animals, the wild beasts, and the creeping animals. B'chol asheres asheres al aretz. B'chol adam, they all died. Pasuk Chav Beis. Kol asher nishmas ruach chayim ba'apov. Every being that had a breath of spirit of life in his nostrils, mikol asher becharavu, mesu, anything that was on dry land died. Rashi says, what does it mean, nishmas ruach chayim? Not an animal doesn't have a neshama. So nishmas chayim, Rashi says it's a neshama, it's like a spirit, and neshima, a spirit of life. Now, what's the diuk ashir becharava, on dry land, and not what? The fish in the sea, they, as we know, did not corrupt their ways, and they were saved. Now, the question is, how were they saved if there was mayim reitchim, there was very hot water over there, so how exactly were they saved? The water will burn them. So there's many different answers. One answer is that it went very, very deep into the bottom of the ocean, so it wasn't affected. Another answer is it went into the Ukiyunis, and there the Ukiyunis wasn't hit. As Eretz Yisrael, according to some opinions, the entire Eretz Yisrael actually was not, the Mabul did not touch Eretz Yisrael. Pasuk of Gimel. Vayimach es kol hayikum asher al pnei ha'adama. Hashem wiped out every being that was on the face of the earth, from Adam ad behema, from man to the behema, ad remes, to the creeping animals, ad eif hashamayim, the birds, vayimochu min ha'aretz, and they were obliterated from the earth. Vayishar ach Noach, and only Noach remained in the v'asher ita b'teva, and those who were with him in the teva. Now, what does it mean, ach Noach? So Rashi tells us three things. Ach Noach means levad Noach. Only Noach remained. Medrash Haggadah, the Medrash says that ach Noach means Neach v'chayar dam b'teirech habehema v'achayis. He was groaning and he was splitting blood because he was working so hard to take care of the animals and the beasts. So from here, you see, and the Lubavitch Rebbe spoke about this many times, and when you even try to do something good for somebody and they kick you, you see by Neach that he was just trying to help the animals, just trying to feed the animal and take care of the lion, and the lion kicked him. Oh, this is what the story was. So, number one is, let me retract. The first explanation is Levad Noach. This is the simple pshat. The Medrash says is that he was just working very hard because he had so many animals to take care of. Some say that he delayed bringing food for the lion and it bit him. All of Nemar, and this is what the pasuk says, that the righteous man, he pays for his sins, and when he comes upstairs, Mamaila, he gets Eilam Haba. Pasuk, and this is what what I said from the Lubavitch Rebbe is on the last pshat, that even though many times we do good for somebody, and instead of appreciating that, they hit us and bite us. Pasuk Chaf Dalid. Now, after the 40 days, as we learned, the rain lasted 40 days. And then for another 150 days, it swelled over the earth for 150 days afterwards, for about 5 months. Pasuk Aleph, Penethes, Pasuk Aleph. Vayisker li'emes Noach, Hashem then remembered Noach. Ve'ez kol ha'chaya, and also all the beasts, ve'ez kol ha'behem, and all the animals, asher ite b'teva, who was with him in the teva. Vayaver lehim ruach ha'aretz. Hashem brought a spirit of comfort. Vayashayku hamayim, the waters stopped. This was after 150 days. There was no more, because the rain was like on and off. So after 150 days, the rain stopped. There was no more rain, and the water started to subside. Aleph vayisker lehim. What does it mean? Hashem remembered. Now, over here, as we know, there's Shem Elikim and Shem Havaya. Shem Elikim always shows a midas hadin. Shem Havaya shows a midas of chesed. And here, it's telling us seemingly something that Hashem did for Noach, which is chesed. So why use the expression Elohim? So Rashi says, Zeh Hashem Midas Hadinu. Elohim represents Midas Hadin, order of justice. It was transformed to Rachamim, to mercy, through the davening of Noach, through the davening of the righteous. And you should know, when it comes to wicked, evil deeds, they transform from Rachamim to Midas Hadin. Shenemar, what do you see that? You see, Pasuk says, Vayar Hashem, in Pasuk Parshas Bereshis, Ki Daba Ras Adam, and Havaya, Yudke Vavke, saw that man's wicked was increasing. That is Midas HaChesed. Vayemer Hashem, and Viter uses the expression, Hashem, Emche, V'hu Shem Midas HaRachim. So tzaddikim have the power to take Elikim and transform that to Yudke Vavke, and the Rishoyim do the exact opposite. What does it mean Hashem remember Noach? Ma zocher lahem lebehemis. So what merit do the animals, what do they deserve? So Rashi says, they merit that they did not pervert their nature before the flood, and they did not have relations in the table. Pasuk says, what does it mean Hashem brought a spirit? So Rashi says it doesn't mean an actual wind, because why would he bring a wind to beat the water? That just makes things worse. So Rashi says, it's a spirit of comfort that came before Hashem, a certain calmness. Al haaretz, what does it mean for the earth? Al iskei haaretz, which means the fears of the earth. By Yashaiku, what does it mean? And the waters stopped. As we find in the Megillah, Kisheich Chamas HaMelech, the anger's king calmed down, abated. Lashon Hanocha Chema, which is an expression of calming the anger. Pasuk Beis, Ba Yisochru Mayanos Tahim, the well springs of the Mayanos Tahim, they were closed up. Ve'arubas Hashemayim, and the rain also was closed up. Ayikole Hageshem and Hashemayim, and the rain was stopped coming from heaven. Rashi says, Vayiseicher Mayanos, what does it mean the well springs closed up? So Rashi says, Kishin iftechu, when Hashem opened them up, Niksiv Kol Mayanos, it says all the well springs. Ve'kan Enksiv Kol, when he came to closing up, it doesn't use the expression Kol. The fish and Ishtaidu Mehem Oisin Sheish Bem Tzirich Le'ilam, because Hashem left them open, because eventually the world is going to need these well springs. Going, for example, Chamei Tverei Kizben, hot springs of Chamei Tverei and other springs. So, which is interesting to note, that even according to the opinion that holds that the Mabul did not take place in Eretz Yisrael, but when it came to the Mayanos HaTahim, he did open those up, and he actually left, the Eibush actually left it open for Chamei Tverei, for Eretz Yisrael. Pasuk Gimel. So, after 150 days, the waters started going down. The water started receding. At the end of, after 150 days, the water started to decrease. Rashi says, after 150 days, the waters began to decrease. When did they begin to decrease? This is on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Ketzad, how is this calculated? The rain stopped on Chof Zayin Kislev, which we learned yesterday. Rashi said it was Chof Ches Kislev. So the Mefarshim deal with that. But Chof Zayin, Chof Ches Kislev, the rain stopped. Hari Gimel Mi Kislev, Chof Tes Tevis, Hari Lamed Beis. So you have 3 days left in Kislev, 29 days of Tevis, and 32 days from Tevis. You have Shvat, Adar, and Nisan, V'ir. So altogether, Kuf Yud Ches, had a Kuf Nun. So when you add everything together, it totals 150 days. So at the end of 150 days, the rain started to go down. Pasuk Dalid. The Teva came to rest on the 7th month. When? B'Shiva Asar Yom Lachedesh, on the 17th day. Where did it rest? Al Hore Ararat, on Har Ararat, on the mountain of Ararat. Rashi says B'Chedesh Hashvi. It says that the Teva rested on Har Ararat on the 7th month. Which month is that? Sivan. This is the 7th month. Of Cheshvan, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevis, Shvat, Adar. So Rashi says Sivan, Ushvi, the Kislev Shabei Pasuk Shamim. This was Sivan, which was the 7th month, counting from Kislev, the month in which the rain stopped. B'shiva Asher Yom, on the 17th day. So Rashi says like this. I'm Daf Halton Cup, but it's really not complicated, and I'll try to go slow and explain it as best as possible. Mikan atalomen sheisa ateva mushkas b'mayim yud aleph amo. From here, from this pasuk, you can learn that the teva was submerged in the water in a depth of 11 amos. Now, where does Rashi get that from? The pasuk doesn't tell us that. So Rashi says, Shariksiv, the pasuk says, and we're going to learn in the next pasuk, in the 10th month, so it rested on the 7th month. Now, in the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, what does the pasuk say? The peaks of the mountains became visible, which that is Ze'ov. This refers to Av, the month of Av, which is the 10th month, counting when you count from Mar Cheshvan. Now, the Torah told us clearly in the previous parak, pasuk Chaf, the pasuk said that the waters that the water was 15 amas taller than all the mountains. Now, so again, the waters were 15 amas higher than the mountains and decreased from Rosh Chodesh Sivan until Rosh Chodesh Av. It decreased 15 amas. So Rashi says, it decreased 15 amas in 60 days. So it comes out the 1 amma every 4 days. Because as we know, the Vatanach HaTeva went on the 7th month. You were able to see the mountain, the peak of the mountain, you were able to see it on the 10th month. So what comes out is you have 60 days. You have 2 months over here. So in 60 days, you were able to, 15 amas went down. Now, when did Vatanach HaTeva, when did it rest? It rested on the 7th month. So if it rested on the 7th month, and then it needed to go down 15 amas, another 15 amas, it needed to go down. So what comes out, Rashi says, is Nimta should be Yudvav b'Sivan le'chosher mayim eladal amas v'nochativ l'imam machras. So it comes out that on the 16th day of Sivan, the waters had only decreased 4 amas, and on the following day, we know the teva rested on Har Ararat. From here you learn, from here you can learn that the teva was submerged 11 amas in the water above the mountain peaks. I hope I was clear. Let's continue. Pasuk says in Rashi, the water were decreasing steadily till when? They were going down at Chodesh HaCity until the 10th month, Bechel HaChedesh on the Chodesh. You were able to see the peaks of the mountains. So Rashi will be a city. This is Av, which is the 10th month from Mar Cheshvan, when the rain began. Now, if you're going to ask, who Elul? Maybe you want to say that this was in fact Elul, the 10th month from Kislev, when the rain stopped. So Rashi says, now, just as you said that the 7th month means Sivan, which was the 7th month after the rain stopped, so you can't say that. Therefore, you must say that it be counted from the time the rain stops. Since the 40 days of the Gshamim, of the rainfall, and the 150 days during which the waters swelled did not finish until Chodesh Sivan. And if you say that it means the 7th month after the beginning of the rainfall, that would not be Sivan but Ir, which is a month earlier. Now, Rashi continues, the 10th month cannot be reckoned from the beginning of the rainfall. If you're going to say that it's from the time that the rain stopped, which means Elul, you would not find that in the first month of the first of the month, the waters had drained upon the land. Why? Because 40 days after the mountains' peaks became visible, Noach, as we're going to learn in a minute, released the raven. And he waited altogether another 21 days in the process of sending the dove away. So making them altogether 60 days from the time the mountaintops became visible until the surface of the ground began to dry. Now, I skipped. Now, if the 10th month was Elul, it would come out that it dried out in Mar Cheshvan 60 days after Elul, which can't be. Why? Which is the beginning of the world. And Yeshua according to Nisan. Okay. Pasuk Vav, the pasuk says, it was after another 40 days. 40 days after the 150 days. Noach opened the window of the teva that he made. Rashi says it's latzeir for light. Now, it's a question, according to the opinion that holds that tzeir is a light, not a window, so why did they open it? But it seems from Rashi that he's following the opinion that tzeir is light. Okay, there's a bigger difference to them, but let's keep shot. This is not, as we learned, this is not the entrance that was made for entry and for exit. Zayim, he sent the raven, but it didn't go on shlichus. It was coming back and forth until the water dried up upon the land. Rashi says, it flew in circles around the teva, and did not go on its shlichus. Why? Because it's suspected Noach that it would have relations with its mate, as we learned in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the water dried up, means the plain English, until the waters of the flood dried up. The Medrash says, what does it mean? According to the Medrash, that the raven was being kept for another shlichus when rain was being withheld in the days of Eliyahu, like it says, and the ravens brought in bread and meat. Pasuk Chaf. He then sent the Yena from being with him, in order to see if the water had stopped, from the surface of the ground. Pasuk says, Rashi says, the end of 7 days. Siv, what does the pasuk say? He waited another 7 days. From here you can learn that prior to the first time he released the dove, he also waited 7 days. She says, over here doesn't mean shlichas, but it means releasing. He sent it off on its way to see if the water stopped or was abated. For if it would find a resting place, it would not return to him. But the dove did not find a resting place for its feet, and it returned back to the table, because there was water on the face of the earth. So Noach stretched his hand and took it, and he brought it back into the table. Rashi says, no Rashi. He waited another Shivas Yom Machim. He waited another 7 days. And again, he again released the dove from the teva. The dove came to him towards evening. And behold, there was a olive leaf that he plucked in its beak. And Noach realized that the water had subsided from upon the land. Rashi says, so Rashi says, I'm of the opinion that it was a male bird. Therefore, sometimes the pasuk refers to in masculine, taraf, and sometimes it's feminine, bifia. Why? Whenever the dove as species is mentioned, it always referred to in the feminine. As it says, his eyes are like those of doves on pools of water, bathed. Like those of the valleys. Like a foolish dove. Taraf, what does taraf mean? Chotav, that he plucked. The Medrash says, Lashon Mozin, that it means an expression of food. Loshin Maimer. And Befi is an expression of speech. Omra Yimazunei Samirurin Kazayas Bielish HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'lei Mesukin Kidavash Bidei Basar Radam. That the Yena was saying, let my food be bitter like the olive, but from the hand of Hashem, rather than the sweet as honey from the hands of human beings. He waited another 7 days. And he sent the dove, and it did not return. Rashi says, Vayachol, this is the same verb as Vayachol, which is this is a verb and a reflective verb. Vayachol vayamten, Vayachol means he waited, Vayachol vayimtan, he waited himself. Yud Gimel Vayibach Chas v'Sheish V'Meis Shana B'Rishayin B'Echad HaChidish Chor Ramayim Al Haaretz. It was in the 601st year, and the first month, on the first of the month, Chor Ramayim Al Haaretz, the water drained from the land. Vayosher Noach as Michsei HaTeva. We didn't learn about this Michsei beforehand, but Noach had a cover that he removed from the ark, from the Teva. Vayar V'Hini Chor Rupnei Adam, and he saw that the surface of the ground had begun to dry. According to the Rabbi Eliezer, it's Tishrei. According to Rabbi Yeshua, it's Nisan. Chorvu, what does it mean? It began to dry. Nasik, mean tit. Earth became like a kind of clay. Shikoru Panash Shamayla, because its upper surface had hardened. And the pasuk concludes, in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, Yoshua Aris, the land became completely dry. Rashi says, the rain had begun to fall on the 17th of the second month. These refers to the 11 days that we have a solar year. As we know, the additional 11 days, the solar years, that was how the Mabul was structured. Yavsha, what does it mean? Became dry. Nasa Godid Hilchasa, it hardened to its normal condition.